Modern forensics, old crimes, how DNA and social media solved the case of Sawa. For centuries, murderers have banked on time to cover their tracks. With witnesses dead, evidence lost, and dusty case files gathering cobwebs, many assumed the past could not speak for itself. But in the last 2 decades, a quiet revolution in forensics and digital sleuthing has shattered that comforting myth for criminals everywhere. Across the world, old murders are being solved not by sudden confessions, but by something far harder to silence: the enduring testimony of human DNA and the unblinking eye of the internet. In police departments once resigned to unsolvable mysteries, fresh answers now arrive through 2 unexpected allies: genetic genealogy and social media. Together, they are cracking open decades-old secrets and delivering overdue justice to victims and families who had all but given up hope. The seed of a revolution. The modern era of DNA forensics began in the 1980s when Sir Alec Jeffreys discovered genetic fingerprinting. But for decades, DNA evidence required a suspect to compare against or a match in a law enforcement database like CODIS. If a killer had never been arrested, the trail usually went cold. That all changed in April 2018 when a California serial rapist and murderer dubbed the Golden State Killer was identified after more than 40 years of terror and silence. Investigators had preserved DNA from crime scenes stretching back to the 1970s, but no hits turned up in CODIS. Then a young investigator tried something radical: upload the crime scene profile to GeneMatch, an open-source genealogy website. The results were breathtaking. Distant cousins popped up. Forensic genealogists painstakingly built family trees backward, hunting for a male descendant who fit the time, place, and profile. When Joseph James D'Angelo, a former police officer, emerged as a candidate, detectives stalked him and retrieved a discarded tissue. A lab matched the DNA, and history was made. D'Angelo's arrest cracked the dam. Law enforcement agencies worldwide began funding genetic genealogy divisions or contracting private companies like Parabon Nanolabs and the DNA Doe Project. Cold cases once thought unsolvable were suddenly ripe for closure. The message was clear: even if you outrun the police, you cannot outrun your own bloodline. Jane does find their names. For the living, this technology delivers answers. For the dead, it gives back lost names and dignity. One striking example came in Kern County, California, where almond farmers found the skeleton of a woman in 1980. For 40 years, she was Kern County Jane Doe. Generations of local detectives failed to identify her. Then, in 2018, the DNA Doe Project, a volunteer group of genealogists, took on the case. Using a degraded sample, they built a partial genome and uploaded it to GeneMatch. Within weeks, a distant niece stumbled on an online post describing the victim's features and scar patterns. She recognized family resemblances and offered her DNA. In early 2020, the woman buried in that orchard got her name back: Shirley Soucy. Her family held a memorial and brought her remains home to rest with her ancestors. This quiet miracle, restoring the identity of the unknown, has now played out across America hundreds of times. A girl dubbed Buckskin Girl in Ohio was finally identified in 2018 as Marcia King. In Nevada, the so-called Arroyo Grande Jane Doe, murdered and left in the desert in 1980, was named Tammy Corrine Terrell in 2021, after genealogists traced relatives in New Mexico. Each case required combining cutting-edge DNA recovery with family tree sleuthing, long nights trawling census records and birth certificates, and often a single living relative willing to spit in a tube. Family trees trap killers. While giving names back to the dead is noble, catching the living is electrifying. The same DNA principles that find lost relatives can unmask a murderer who thought they got away clean. When New York police caught Jupiter Joe Martinez for the murder of Minerliz Soriano, a 13-year-old Bronx girl killed in 1999, they didn't find his DNA in any criminal database. Instead, they found his father's. Using familial DNA, they zeroed in on Martinez, tracked him as he drank coffee on the street, and collected his cup lid. A few days later, he was charged with a crime the city had nearly forgotten. In the Midwest, a viral true crime twist unfolded when a Michigan woman's home DNA test for ancestry unlocked a decades-old mystery. She discovered she was biologically linked to a long unsolved infant homicide from 1997, known as Baby Garnet. Digging deeper, she confronted her grandmother on TikTok. The story exploded online and drew police back to the case. By 2024, her grandmother, Nancy Gerwitowski, was arrested for the murder of her own newborn, a crime that would likely have remained buried without the double punch of DNA ancestry and social media virality. These are not isolated freak incidents. Genetic genealogy has exposed so many dormant monsters that some cold case detectives call it the biggest single breakthrough since fingerprinting. Each time, the process is delicate. The technology must parse partial or degraded DNA, cross-reference with distant cousins who have voluntarily uploaded their data, and eliminate false leads. It requires biology, genealogy, and the patience of old-fashioned detective work. Social media, the new town crier. Meanwhile, in living rooms and smartphones worldwide, social media has become an unexpected crime-solving tool. When police fail to find answers, sometimes the public does. In upstate New York, the 1968 hit-and-run killing of 4-year-old Carol Lee Ashby haunted her sister for half a century. In the early 2000s, a retired detective created a Facebook page to renew interest in the cold case. He posted old photos, theories, and pleas for help. Within weeks, a tip landed, a childhood story about a drunken teen driving recklessly on Halloween night. It led to Douglas Parkhurst, who confessed in 2013, nearly 50 years after he fled the scene. In Europe, the family of Henri Lamazne, a French skier who vanished in the Alps in 1954, finally learned his fate when a prosecutor posted an old photograph to a local ski Facebook group in 2015. The photo went viral, a niece recognized him, and DNA from a forgotten bone sample confirmed the match. His bones had lain in a glacier for decades, but the interconnected him to the family he left behind. A marriage of science and public curiosity. Sometimes DNA and social media unite like twin blades. In Australia, when a jawbone washed up on Umina Beach in 2020, local police were baffled. A forensic genealogy team cracked the code. The jaw belonged to Henry George Coleman, a man murdered in 1980. True crime podcasts amplified the mystery, helping unearth connections and spark new witness tips that supported the DNA match. These modern hybrid cases prove that solving crime today is no longer confined to a lab or a badge. It is a conversation, a Google search, a podcast download, a collective effort to untangle truth from silence. Ethics in the age of infinite traces. For all its power, this new frontier brings moral hazards. Critics worry that a distant cousin's hobby DNA upload could expose entire families to police scrutiny. What about privacy? What about mistaken identity? GEmatch now requires users to opt in for law enforcement searches, and big players like Ancestry and 23andMe insist they don't share data with police without a warrant. But gray areas abound. When is a tip good enough to investigate? Who controls how deep a family tree can go? Social media adds another dilemma: vigilante justice. While online communities often help solve cases, they can also ruin innocent lives with rumor and speculation. Still, for most families who have waited lifetimes for closure, these risks feel worth it. For them, the cost of silence is higher than the cost of being found. Tomorrow's clues lie waiting. For now, thousands of unsolved murders and nameless remains still wait in police evidence lockers, deep freezers, and dusty filing cabinets. Each scrap of bone, cigarette butt, or hair follicle is a ticking time bomb for any killer who thought time would protect them. As science sharpens and people keep uploading family trees, each passing day shrinks the dark corners where secrets hide. In a world where a strand of hair and a single Facebook post can break a case wide open, the old saying holds true. Dead men tell no tales, but their DNA and their story shared online just might.